have a piece here in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers by Jack Fowler, National Review. And it is an anti-Biden piece. It's in fact entitled Biden, Never. He's a never Bidener. And he reminds us of several things about this guy that do not make up the standard reporting on Joe Biden. I want to run through some of them here because they're crucially important. Jack Fowler begins by writing, in my 34th year of never Biden, exhausted by political commentary, Trump myopia, I offer some reasons that explain a complete personal disdain for the idea of a President Biden. These reasons for opposing him, for objecting to this doddering culmination of a half-century of hackery and blarney, elicit varying degrees of disqualification and rage inducement. The handful of reasons I cite, and there are many more, are disqualifying. I present them here without the obsession of but Trump rhetoric. Look elsewhere if that's what you want. This is done with an understanding that never Biden, hashtag never Biden, is a status that applies to many Americans. Now, Fowler points out something. This is very, I think, crucial, folks. If you're out there and you haven't made up your mind, I don't know how this is possible, but if you haven't, please listen to me here. The true game changer to this pandemic ought to be a successful vaccine or vaccines that, if taken, would restore normalcy of work, travel, commuting, socializing, weddings, worship, vacations, camaraderie, and so much more, such as consumer spending. All of this has been curtailed and suppressed by lockdowns and other measures. At least with vaccines, much would be met with far less fear. Vaccines will be empowering and restorative, and they are deserving of overwhelming support. Now, this summer, as Trump's Operation Warp Speed pedal hit the metal, Gallup reported that 2/3 of Americans are willing to be vaccinated. But then came the disingenuous and disparaging political rhetoric of the Biden-Harris ticket, which has severely harmed public support for the vaccine, the de facto cure, and these two people are destroying it. 2/3 of Americans were in favor of the vaccine. Now, because of Biden, it's down to 50%. In August, 83% of Democrats polled were willing to take the vaccine. As of late September, that number has plunged to 53%. Biden has repeated the COVID anti-vaxxing rhetoric. He said, I trust vaccines, I trust scientists, but I don't trust Donald Trump. Biden said this September 16 speech in Delaware. And at this moment, the American people can't trust Trump either, said Biden. Really? So you can't trust Pfizer? You can't trust Johnson & Johnson? Trump's not making his own vaccine in some basement laboratory. Jack Fowler is pointing out here that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are single-handedly destroying the public confidence in what would be the most restorative agent our society could have regarding COVID, and that is a vaccine. Look at the flu. We do not have a flu vaccine, but people think we do because we have flu shots. So people get their flu shots and they go about their lives, which is what we want to achieve with COVID. Legitimate shots, legitimate vaccines, legitimate therapeutics. And here is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and they're doing everything they can to destroy confidence in that. That is unconscionable. And Mike Pence pointed this out to her in their vice presidential debate. Now, Fowler's point is some guy who would do this for the sake of politics, somebody who would destroy the recoverability of our country regarding COVID simply for political points doesn't deserve to be rewarded any political points. And I wholeheartedly agree. And we don't hear this aspect of Biden enough, which is why I am mentioning it now. because Joe Biden, with his vice presidential nominee, are destroying the one thing that could lead to a return to normalcy in American life, and that would be support for the vaccine for COVID-19. Now, it's one thing if you don't want to take it, fine, but these two people running for president, vice president, and they are trying to say that you can't trust the vaccine because it's Donald Trump's. It isn't Donald Trump's. Donald Trump does not have his own laboratory in the basement of the White House where he's concocting something that's going to hurt people. This is Pfizer. This is Johnson & Johnson. This is Merck. This is a whole bunch of some of the best pharma companies we have out there working on this. And then there's this, folks, the awful story of the first Mrs. Biden is well known. Along with her daughter, Naomi, Mrs. Biden, number one, was killed in a car accident December 1972, just weeks after Joe was first elected to the Senate. It was an accident. A truck hit the Biden car. The truck driver was blameless, whatever the cause. This is true. No charges were ever filed, nor should there have been. But what if the driver, the late Curtis Dunn, had been drinking? Well, that's not true either. No, but years after this terrible tragedy, Joe Biden needed more sympathy for a political campaign, so he began to lie. Didn't just exaggerate, he began to lie. 30 years after his wife's death, he began telling audiences that the driver, Curtis Dunn, had been drinking. That he had had that old liquid lunch. The Dunn family called Biden out. The boozed-up story was a lie, they said. It denigrated their late father, who lived out his years really bothered by the heaviness of the tragedy. Biden ignored repeated requests to end this fiction. Eventually, he did stop, but he didn't apologize. But he never should have started. Joe Biden embellished a profound tragedy, the death of his first wife. He persisted at it. He repeatedly lied in the face of all the known evidence. His exaggerations pained real people whose requests for Biden to stop this were ignored for years. To be Joe Biden means at times to be a twisted Walter Mitty, a contriver who thrills to go down fantastical alleyways. His thought processes, his motivations, his objectives, all combine to produce a deeply disturbing package. This is a true story. The driver was not drunk. The driver was not charged. It was a pure accident. But years later, when Biden needed sympathy in a campaign, he changed the details, claimed the driver had been drinking, took his wife from him. The family said, please stop this, Senator Biden. It's not true. Biden refused to stop for years. So a guy willing to denigrate the one thing that could spur a psychological return to normalcy in America, a vaccine or two for the coronavirus. And now a guy willing to lie and defame and impugn the lives of people that didn't do a damn thing to him. Joe Biden doesn't deserve the Oval Office. He doesn't deserve the respect of somebody seeking it. And he actually represents a clear and present danger to the country. I've always liked that ever since I saw those as a title of a Tom Clancy book, Clear and Present Danger.